Last section in chapter 3 is variation. So the first subject is direct variation. So this is relating x and y. How is x and y related? So x is related to y but by some kind of constant of variation. That's what k stands for. Is actually not constant, but constant variation. So that should be an n in there. Constant variation. Okay. So this is kind of like with how much, like when you go for a job, like dollars per hour, right? So how much you get paid is in direct variation with how many hours you work, right? So that's a direct variation. And the constant would be if minimum wage would be a constant, right? So whatever the minimum wage is, that is your constant. It doesn't change. If somebody works for minimum wage at McDonald's and somebody works for minimum wage at Burger King, right? They still get paid that same constant regardless, right? It just depends on how much you get paid overall is based on how many hours you work. So that would be the x, right? X is related to y by that direct variation. Okay, so as the value of x increases, the value of y also increases. As x decreases, the value of y decreases. So there's a direct relationship between x and y, and that direct relationship is by that value of k, that constant of the variation. Okay, so this is some of the questions might be y varies directly as x, or y is directly proportional to x. So whatever comes before the word varies, that's our key identifier here, varies, that is the letter going before the equal sign. Okay, so you always have equals k in there. So equals k is always in there. So equals k is always in there. Whatever comes before varies, that is before the equal sign. So that becomes before the equal sign. Now the next word that follows is going to be what kind of operation is happening. What are you doing to k? Are you multiplying something by k, or are you dividing something by k? So the next word, directly, and the word jointly both mean multiplying. Okay, so it's always equals k. Whatever comes before varies comes before the equal sign. And whatever comes after varies, that's going to tell you the operation. Either you're multiplying or dividing. So the word directly means multiplication. So we're going to multiply k, and then whatever follows that word, that's what we're going to multiply by k by. So x follows directly, so that means we're going to multiply directly, means multiply by x. So there's our equation, y equals kx. Y equals kx. Same thing with this one. A little bit different because it's using different words. It doesn't have the word varies in it, but y is directly proportional to x. So y comes before directly, so it also says the word is, right? Y is, that means y equals k, and now what follows the is your operation. So it says directly, so that's multiply, and whatever follows that letter, whatever follows that is going to be multiplying by k. So it follows that is x, so we're going to multiply it by x. Alright, let's do a couple examples. Okay, so I guess before we do a couple examples, here's how do you solve variation problems. Okay, so you have first you need to write your equation, right? Y equals kx, right? So some of those letters can change around. It could be x equals ky. The letters can change, right? So you write your equation first, and it's always equals k, and k is always in the numerator. So right now we're talking about directly, a direct relationship. Next there'll be inverse, and inversely means we're taking k and dividing it by something. Okay? And then the third one is jointly, which again is just multiplication, same as directly. So you write your basic equation first. That's step one. Write the basic equation using k as a constant, right? So it always has k in it. Then we substitute the values that are given to us, and we plug in those for our letters, minus k, because they won't give us a k. We have to find k. So we're going to substitute in the numbers that they give us, everything but k, and then we solve for k. So that's step 2. And then we find the value of k. Then we plug k in here, so we plug k into our equation of step number 1. And then we would go ahead and use the next values that they give us. We would substitute the remaining values and solve what they ask us to solve for. Okay, so I think there's some examples down here. So let's go ahead and use those steps and do these examples. Okay, so the area of a rectangle varies directly as its length. If the area, well, let's just stop there. Well, yeah, if the area is 50 meters squared, when the length is 10 meters, we want to find the area when the length is 25. Okay, so these are kind of like proportions, right? That's why it says directly proportional to. So we're basically just finding the proportion, right? Setting up a proportion. Well, first we want to write the first sentence here is going to be our formula, right? The area of a rectangle varies, right? So it's always going to be equals k. Now what comes before the word varies? That's the area of a rectangle. So let's let the area of a rectangle be A. So A equals K. Now the word directly, that means multiplying, right? So we're going to multiply K by something, and we're going to multiply what follows directly. Well, what follows directly? The length. Let's let length be L. So there's our formula. We're done with step 1. So that's step 1. Okay, now step 2 says that, okay, now we enter the information and find K. Well, if I want to find K, that means they need to give me an A and give me an L, right? Well, let's look at the second sentence. Well, the area is 50. Well, isn't that our A? All right, our area is the A, so 50. So can we enter in 50 for A? And then they say when the length is 10. Well, the length is 10, so that's our L, right? So can I enter in 10 for L? Now, I don't want to enter in any more information, right? Because I'm trying to find K, right? So even though they give us another number here, I'm not going to enter that in for K. I got to find K first. So here I set up this equation. So there's step 2. And now we got to solve for it, right? That's the second half of step 2. So that means K is equal to 5. Okay. Now step 3 says now we take our K and we plug it into our equation. So we plug it into the equation from step 1. So here's our equation from step 1. A equals KL, K times L. Now we're going to enter in our K, which is 5. So A equals 5 times L, 5 times the length. Now we're to step 4. Now we can solve for any additional information they give us. Now they want to find, okay, find the area if it's 25. We could find the area if it's the length is 12. We could find, that's why we have a formula, right? You give me any length, any number you want to, and I could find the area. Because now I have the relationship. What's happening? Whatever the length is, I'm timesing 5 by it to get to my area, right? So this is kind of like how much you get paid versus the hours you work, right? And the minimum wage, or however much you're getting paid per hour, right? That's the constant of the variation. So our constant is 5. So now if they give us a length, which they do, 25, we enter that in. They could actually only give us an A and we could find our length. And now we can find it, multiply, so we get area equals 125. So meters squared, right? Because it's area. So that's how you do these problems. You write the equation, you enter in the given information to find K. Once you find K, you write your equation, and then you, after you're done writing your equation, then you plug in those numbers, you solve for your K. Once you find your K, you plug your K back into your original equation for K, and then you solve for any additional information they give you. Okay? So here's another example. The pressure exerted by a certain liquid at a given point varies directly as the depth of the point beneath the surface of the liquid. The pressure at 10 feet is 50 pounds per square inch. What is the pressure at 15? A lot of words here, but how are these going to be written? Isn't it always y equals K? So we put in there equals K, so it's always going to equal K. Now, the pressure exerted by the liquid at a given point varies directly. So what comes before the word varies? Well, that's the pressure exerted by a certain liquid. That's a lot of words, right? So can we just let a letter represent the pressure exerted, right? So how about pressure? So P. How about P for pressure exerted? Okay, so that comes before the word varies. What comes after that? What are we going to do? We're going to multiply or divide by K. Well, the word directly means multiplication, so we're going to multiply K. We're going to multiply K by whatever follows the word directly as the depth of the point beneath the surface. So the depth of the point beneath the surface. So depth, can we just say depth? So could we use D? You could use X and Y if you wanted to instead of P and D. Okay, so now we have our equation, right? There's our equation. Now we want to find the pressure at 10. So our pressure at 10 feet is 50 pounds. So that means our pressure at 10 feet, so depth kind of relates to length, right? So we're at 10 feet. So 10 actually stands for D here, times that by K, and that's going to equal our pressure, which is 50 pounds per square inch. So sometimes you might want to read the whole thing. Look at that second sentence, and that kind of lets you know what each letter could be, probably than the first. And I can do that on the next ones that we do. Okay. So this part, this second part, where it actually gives us the numbers, that will help kind of determine, you know, maybe what letters I should use, because it says pressure at 10 feet. Doesn't mean the pressure is 10, because pressure at 10 feet. So that 10 is relating to 10 feet is relating to depth, not to pressure. Pressure is in pounds per square inch, so the pressure would be 50. Okay, now we can solve this. Hey, look, it looks the same as that equation. K is 5. So P equals 5 times D. Now we can find any pressure given a certain depth, right? So what is the pressure at 15 feet? So that means we're entering 15 feet in for our depth, timesing it by 5 to get our pressure, right? So our pressure equals 75. So there we go. Okay, so last part of this subject, direct variation, is the direct variation as the nth power. So as y varies directly as the nth power of x. So this is how it might be written. Okay, so this is how the two different ways they can say it. Y varies directly as the nth power of x. Y varies directly proportional to the nth power of x. So instead of nth power, they might say as the second power, as the fifth power, right? N just stands for any integer, right? Or any natural number or whole number. Any nth power, right? Any nth power of whatever variable that follows. Okay, so say it's the top one. So this is how it's written. This is the direct variation as the nth power. Y equals k x raised to the n. Right? So to write the first one, it's always equals k. Now what comes before varies? That'd be y, so y becomes before the equals. What comes after varies? That's our operation directly, so that's multiplying. And what follows that? What letter follows that? The letter that follows is x, so that's x, but it's the second power of x, so x needs to be squared. Okay, the bottom one you can try to do by yourself, but it's is, right? It's always going to be equal k. What follows the word is, that's y. What follows after that is the operation directly, so that's multiplying. Now proportional to, right, what follows directly, what letter, that's x, so it's times by x. And now what power of x? To the fifth power, so that's x to the fifth. So that's how you can write those ones. Alright, so that's, I'll do some, put your problems that you're supposed to do. Number 21. Okay, so here is number 21, the circumference of a circle varies directly as the radius. A circle with radius 7 inches has a circumference of 43.96 inches. Find the circumference of the circle if the radius changes to 11. So basically you want to find that constant of the variation first, right? Plug that in, and then we can find out, okay, what is the circumference if our radius is 11. Okay, so you can pause it, you can do it. I'm about to do it right now. Right, it's always equals k is our equation, equals k. Now, you can look at what are we talking about. Well, we're talking about two things, right? We're talking about on a circle, we're talking about the circumference and the radius, right? So we can look at the second sentence. It says radius is 7 and circumference is 43 point something, right? So now we just need to figure out which one comes before the equal sign. Well, that's why we look at varies, and what's before varies? That's circumference. So we can let that be C, or any letter. You can let it be Y or X, I don't care. And then directly, that means we're multiplying, right? And what are we multiplying by? What follows directly? Well, that's the radius, so we can do R for that. Okay. Now we can enter in our information they give us. Okay, they say radius is 7, so 7k equals our C. What do they say? Circumference is 43.96. So now we can solve for k. Divide by 7. Divide by 7. Take 43.96 and divide that by 7. So 43.96 divided by 7 equals 6.28. So k is equal to 6.28. So now we can enter that into our first equation, right? We can delete our k. We can write our 6.28 there. And now we can find any circumference given any radius. Well, they want to know when the radius is 11. So let's times that by 6.8 and we get our circumference. So times that 6.8 by 11, 6.28 by 11, and we get the circumference is equal to 69.08. So there's our circumference if our radius is 11. So this is really just a proportion, right? Our circumference and our radius, right? We have our circumference over our radius, and we want to find out, okay, what is the circumference, right? Because the circumference over the radius is the same thing as the circumference over the radius. Well, we're given one circumference in the radius, right? And that's equal to another circumference over the radius, and they have given us the radius 11. So we're just solving this proportion, right? And we can solve proportions, right? If two fractions set equal to each other, we can just cross multiply. So 11 times 43.96. And then, well, we don't even have to cross multiply all the way. All we have to do is must multiply both sides by 11, right? That gets rid of that fraction in this one. And then we divide that answer by 7, and we get our 69.08. So it's really just a proportion here. That's all it is. That's why it says that one is directly proportional to, right? Y is directly proportional to. That means Y over X equals K, right? Directly proportional to.